Hello everybody and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn and in this video we're going to do another writing check. Of course we start as always by reading the question, analysing the question, making sure that we understand every tiny detail in the question. Okay, some people believe that scientists have the greatest influence on the world. Scientists have the greatest influence on the world. That's what some people believe. Not everybody, just some people believe that. But other people, so there is a divide, there is a split between some people and other people. Some people believe that scientists have the greatest influence on the world, but other people think that the influence of politicians is greater. 2 points of view. Scientists have the greatest influence on the world. No, the influence of politicians is greater. So the task is to discuss both of these views and give your own opinion. So you must do that. You must discuss both views and present your own opinion on this. Just notice one tiny nuance here. It's this comparative form of greater. Let's pick a bright color. Greater. Not just great, not just big, but greater than scientists. And so perhaps we want to see some kind of comparative language. I don't know, would you be marked down if you didn't use this comparative language to show that politicians is even greater than scientists' influence? I don't know, but it is in the question. Politicians is greater than scientists. Okay, so in terms of the structure here, pretty straightforward. I want to see some background information. Maybe the background information will talk about, general information about the role of scientists and politicians, or general information about, the types of people who influence the world. Some reference to the question, some reference to the split between scientists and politicians. And then I want to see in the introduction the candidate's position. I don't need to know why they believe that, but in order to set it up, in order to set the essay up, really want to see the candidate's position, the candidate's opinion. Does the candidate believe that scientists have the greatest influence, or does the candidate believe that politicians' influence is greater? I'd like to see that in the introduction. So let's have a look at the candidate's writing. Oh, sorry, I should mention the structure. So, general information, a reference to the question, to the split, to the divide, and the candidate's own position in the introduction. Very, very straightforward then. Body paragraph 1, the influence of scientists. Body paragraph 2, why some people believe politicians' influence is greater. And then in the conclusion, a short summary of those points, and then the candidate's own position. And a bit of development, a bit of explanation why the candidate holds that position. But okay, let's have a look at the candidate's writing. So, paragraph count 1. Oh, this is a long paragraph. 2. That's another long paragraph. 3. And paragraph 4. So 4 paragraphs, great, but this looks very long. This looks like it's about 400 words even. Let's check. Word count, 404 words. So, very easy to give feedback immediately. You have to make your writing shorter. Of course, there is no upper limit. There's nothing that will necessarily mark you down for having a long response. I don't like it. I feel, and trust me when I say examiners will not like this either. Examiners are usually paid per paper, and most examiners kind of want to get through them as quickly as possible. They don't really read them in great detail because, when you're experienced enough, you can read through an essay and give the scores very quickly. And the more you write, the more time it will take the examiner to check it. But anyway, on a more practical level, you save your time. You have 40 minutes for this task, and obviously someone who writes 250 words or 260, 70, 80 they can write probably, they can use better language than someone who's writing 400 words. It's more to check. It's more difficult to set up. Also, there's a danger that you might go off topic if you write too many words. But in short, if the word limit says write at least 250 words, you should not be writing 400 words. I think the golden zone is about 280 to 300. Anything more than 300, and I think try to get it less. 400 words, it's just too many. Write fewer words. Be more concise. But anyway, let's check the essay here. This essay is going to delve into, so I don't like this thesis statement as the opening statement. Saying what this essay is going to talk about. I don't like that in terms of the structure. I think we have to start with a bit of background information or with a reference to the question. It's so strange for the reader to just open, this essay is going to delve into the, it's like, whoa, I'm confused. You need to set this up better, and we can set this up with background information about the subject or some reference to the question. So I just don't like that we're starting with the thesis statement here. That's not the convention of an academic essay. It might be the convention of an abstract in a PhD thesis or dissertation or something like this, but that isn't how academic essays start. But okay, in terms of language, to delve into something, good. That's good. Okay, one common argument is that scientists... Okay. There's an attempt at a paraphrase, I guess. One common argument is that scientists have a greater impact on changing the world. Okay, but it's not on changing the world, is it? It's just on the world. So I don't know where you get this changing the world. I know maybe it's normal to think that, but you're adding extra layers that aren't really there in the question. While another viewpoint holds that, I really love this use of hold, that's good, a viewpoint holds that politicians have more influence. Okay, fine. Both positions have valid arguments. I'm very fussy about logic, and in technical terms, a valid argument is something different to usual language, so I don't know. Reasonable arguments, maybe. But okay, maybe in everyday language, valid is okay here. In philosophy, there's a very specific definition of what a valid argument is. And just because an argument is valid doesn't always mean that it's a good argument. It just means that the conclusion follows from the premises. But let's not talk about philosophy. And we will explore the reasoning. So again, we get another thesis statement here. So we get a thesis statement to open, and then we get another thesis statement here. So I just not a big fan of this introduction. But the language is good. The reasoning behind, so I like the reasoning behind. I think that's very good natural language, and it's academic in style. And there's another problem, though. So this is good. The other problem is I can't see what the candidate's opinion is here. And I would like to know that in the introduction. Of course, when you have an essay question like, what do you think? Or what is your opinion? It is 100% essential to put your opinion in that paragraph, because we have to maintain a clear position throughout. Discuss both sides, discuss both views. You don't necessarily have to keep that, there's not a focus on one clear position because we're balancing. And so maybe it's slightly less important, but still, I feel like we will explore the reasoning behind both of the opinions and discuss why have more influence, something like this. So just stating your opinion, not explaining, but just stating your opinion in the introduction would be good. So, okay, from the introduction, I can see that the candidate's language, vocab and grammar, pretty tight, pretty good, good control. But this just doesn't really, it's not a perfect introduction in terms of its communicative achievement, in terms of following the normal conventions of academic essays. So this would affect coherence and cohesion just a little bit. But okay, hopefully now we get into the why some people believe that scientists have the greatest influence on the world. And I'd like to see, a couple of reasons. Just 2 reasons would be enough. Let's see. The people who are advocates of, and it's not that they're advocates of scientists, it's they're advocates of the point of view. Sorry. I see the gerund clause. The people who are advocates, plural noun, we need, of scientists having more influence. So I love this gerund clause. Sorry, I should have read on. Love this gerund clause. Very nice. Of scientists having more influence on the world shows. What does it mean that the advocates shows? How can an advocate show the internet? So shows the internet. They show the internet as an example. Give or point to, maybe, but not shows. One of the most influential products, plural, of scientists. And I don't know what it means. It's a product of scientists. Maybe a creation of scientists, perhaps, as an example. Probably it could be seen as good hedging language, but for me probably is a little bit conversational. It's not very academic. We could use something like it is arguably, or it is arguable that, or maybe even perhaps, but probably to introduce something here just feels a little bit conversational. Probably nothing has changed the world that we perceive. I don't know the world that we perceive. This that we perceive seems like a pointless extra clause. Nothing has changed the world as much as the internet. Okay. It gave, probably has given is better. Has given more freedom of speech, connected the entire globe. Okay, cohesion is falling down here because we have more freedom of speech, point number 1, connected the entire globe, but then we have a comma with more additional information about what it means to connect the entire globe. And then we get while afterwards. So there is these points are poorly connected. So we should say something like it has given firstly, it has given us more freedom of speech. Additionally, it has connected the entire globe, comma, making it possible to communicate instantly with people on the other side of the world, maybe? Okay, but with the other side of the world in seconds. Maybe full stop, and then add a new sentence, something there like meanwhile or previously people weren't able to imagine. So I just think that this is I'm just going to underline it. This is just has poor cohesion here, the way that these ideas are linked. But okay, communicate instantly, cool. I like this, communicate instantly instead of instantly communicate. I like this. So that's good language. With the other side of the world, cool. In seconds, cool. While the people before the internet era, so article, the internet era, even weren't even is better. So position of even as an adverb of focus. Weren't even able to imagine, I don't know, but the contraction weren't. In academic writing, we generally don't use these contracted forms. So instead of weren't, we usually write were not. Instead of can't, we write cannot. Instead of it's, we write it is. So just a simple thing here in academic writing, just don't use contractions. Weren't able to imagine reaching the next town. So you reach a place, you don't reach to a place. Okay, this information also just feels so unnecessary. Our focus now, there's just too much focus on the internet. The focus really should be on how scientists influence the world. And the candidate, I feel, is just going too deep into this topic of the internet. But okay, another example of the effect of scientists on the world is cars, planes and trains comma, which are means of transportation. Which are means of transportation. Okay. Maybe wouldn't a better way to set that up? So I like this, another example of, that's good signposting language. It shows that we're moving to a new point. But wouldn't it be better to say another example of the effect of scientists on the world is means of transportation, including cars, planes, and trains? I think that's a better way of setting it up, going with the broad term, means of transportation, and then giving examples, rather than giving examples and then saying what the broad term is. So, yeah. It used to take days to reach even to. It used to take days to reach maybe even to reach the next city, while now it takes less than a day to travel to the furthest to travel the furthest distance on the globe. Hence, okay, comparing the ancient times when people had limited resource technology. Hence, comparing the ancient comparing to the ancient times, or in comparison with the ancient times, or just ancient times when people had limited resources, comma, technology has completely changed. So candidates not quite sure what that difference between past simple, present perfect. Technology has completely changed how we live and how we behave. Okay, but how we live and how we behave, that's not closely, for me, not closely connected to transportation. You know, if I'm thinking of the comparison between ancient times, how we live and how we behave, it's not really massively connected to transportation, but okay. It made possible to reach anything in seconds. Oh, we're really falling down here. It made possible to reach anything in seconds. Anything, what do you mean? Anywhere? Any place? In seconds. Ergo technology. Completely confused by this. This is not what ergo means. Which is built by scientists. Maybe full stop. Ergo technology, which is built by scientists, changed the world completely. Okay, so body paragraph 1. I can't say I'm fully informed. I kind of get the idea. The candidate has told me that, yeah, the internet is great, transportation is great, and these have had an influence on changing the world. But the examples don't clearly follow and don't satisfactorily support the main ideas. So the main ideas are clear, but the explanation and the support is fairly weak, and that puts, task response probably at a 6, not higher. Okay, as an opposite but maybe equally valid opinion. Okay, as an opposite but maybe equally valid opinion, some people might argue, I like this use of hedging, but we get too much of it, right? Maybe equally valid opinion. Some people might argue, just feels a bit too much hedging here, might argue that politicians, not the politicians, have a greater impact, not greater impact. So candidate is not great with articles. Impact of changing the world, but on changing the world. And it seems like this language is repeated here. Let's have a look. Scientists having more influence on the world. Oh no, the language isn't repeated. Maybe from the... Yeah, here we go. Scientists have a greater impact on changing the world. Just read that again. Scientists have a greater impact on changing the world. And here we get politicians have greater impact of changing the world. So we get almost word for word the same sentence. So maybe suggests candidates' lexical resource is a little limited than scientist. Just one scientist or plural? So again, candidate has problems showing the difference between singular and plural nouns, and this really is a problem. Despite the fact that the candidate has shown some good grammar, is built by passive, nice variety of structures. I'm a little bit concerned with this repetitive mistake with the candidate not knowing the difference between singular nouns and plural nouns. Okay, the argument on this side. Okay, but we're taking too long to set it up, right? We don't need to say that the other argument exists. We've already said in the introduction that there are two sides. Just start with others, however, believe that politicians' influence is greater than scientists because and then develop it. So you're spending too much time explaining that there is another point of view. In there's 2.5 lines, you're explaining that another point of view exists. But you've already explained that another point of view exists. We've seen that in the introduction, and we've also seen that in the question. So now for the third time, we are stating that a different point of view exists, so we don't need this. The argument on this side is their task, I guess you mean politicians, but it's not, I have to infer that it's not immediately clear. So the referent is slightly dodgy. It's understandable, but, finding that this reference to him there pointing to politicians, yeah. Okay, the argument on this side is their task is making people believing in them. So you make somebody do something. Not make somebody doing something, but make somebody do something. So their task, politicians' task, one task, their only task, I guess, is making people believe in them, in politicians, and following them. And follow them. So again, make somebody do something. I don't know if that's politicians' number one task, is it? To make people follow them? Surely politicians' number one task is to represent their constituents or to represent the people who voted for them and to, do the things that they promised to do, not just to get a big following. But okay. Some famous politicians who have profoundly negative or positive influence on the world during the war times. We're losing focus here. Why are we talking about war times? Not quite sure where we're going. And who have united and organized the crowds, unarguably have shaped society, not the society. Okay, but I'm still looking for a development of, give me a clear example of politicians' influence on the world. Okay, war times, perhaps, but you need to, point to the idea that politicians are responsible for making decisions that take people to war. And you haven't done that. There are some political figures in the world, not on the world, who have ruled perhaps, well, maybe who ruled, or are still ruling. Okay, I like this. Or still are ruling. Okay, just wrong position of the word still. But nice flexibility with tenses, who ruled or are still ruling the countries for decades. Okay, but what? Show why this is influential. The proponents of this view, I still don't know what this view really is. Only the overall view that politicians have had a greater impact, but I don't know what your argument in support of this view is. Say that, no comma here. We shouldn't use a comma here. Those politicians have substantial impact, or a substantial impact, should be a substantial impact on humans and can cause magnificent, okay, but this is just so magnificent changes. What changes? So you haven't really pointed to politicians really having any influence. You've only said, yeah, they want to get people to follow them. Okay, at least in your previous paragraph, you said scientists created the internet and the internet changed the world. Scientists created means of transportation and means of transportation have changed the world. But here, I can't really point to anything that you've said. You've said that they have negative or positive influence during war times. But what is that influence? That it's negative or positive? What is a negative influence? What is a positive influence? Uniting crowds? I don't really see that as an argument. So I don't think this body paragraph has any argument at all. You've expressed a viewpoint, but you haven't made an argument. Okay. In this essay, we should have a comma here. In this essay, viewpoints of both arguments are shown and argued. Okay, this is just so empty. Just summarize the points. We don't need to... I know viewpoints of both arguments are shown and argued. But you don't need to say that. Summarize the main points. To conclude, good signposting language, but I'd really like to conclude at the beginning. To conclude, while politicians undeniably, I like this undeniably, have affected societies by shaping the policies. Okay, now you're talking about how politicians influence, but that the conclusion is not the place to introduce those points. By shaping policies, not the policies. It is the scientific innovations and therefore scientists that, because scientific innovations is the head noun here. Innovations is the head noun, scientific is the pre-modifying adjective, but the head noun is innovations, and innovations not who, but innovations that. I know you say, and therefore scientists, but because this is in commas, it's an embedded, it's an additional clause, but the main noun is innovations that. Okay, that have completely altered, okay, nice synonym for change, altered how we live and how we interact with each other. From the invention of the internet to transportation vehicles, maybe, scientists have had a greater influence on the world. Okay, so conclusion, you know, I can see the candidate's position at least. Cool. I don't think there's a great summary because there's no points from the politician's side to really summarize because the candidate hasn't really made any of those points. But okay, task response. So, task response, I'm going to give a score of, I'm going to be a bit cruel and give a score of 5 for this, simply because I think the support for the scientist's point of view is weak, and I feel like there is no argument at all here. And also, the fact that you didn't include your opinion, your position in the introduction pulls it down a little bit. I think task response 5. Coherence and cohesion. So I think we can award the 6 for this, right? There are 4 paragraphs. There is a natural flow. We start with an introduction, then we talk about one side, then we try to talk about the others, and then we give the conclusion. Great. We do have some nice signposting language to conclude. As an opposite, not really perfect in terms of vocab, but it's fine. People who are advocate for scientists, cool, maybe. So there is some signposting language, not great in terms of cohesive devices. We get a bit of even, we get some still. I mean, those are adverbials, I guess. We get some embedding. Any cohesive devices? We get some hence. I think there was an ergo in there too, but I don't. Yeah, yeah, there's ergo. So signposting language and cohesive devices, they are okay. But you know, nice logical structure, nice flow from one paragraph to the next, decent. Okay. The lexical resource, I think we can award a 6 for this. So in general, the candidate does have enough resource to talk about the topic. However, there are some cases of like not very academic use, like magnificent changes feels a little bit emotive. Strange use of like ergo. I'm not sure if that's really used correctly here. Transportation means is maybe okay, but means of transportation I think is better. We get some like this use of probably feels a little bit informal. So in terms of academic style, not always there, but we perceive is very good. Advocate is very good. That's kind of nice. Substantial impact is very good. Cool. Yeah, the candidate does have really some good vocab there. I find there is a bit of repetition of language, which is something I really am not a big fan of, like that I mentioned earlier. Scientists have had a greater impact on changing the world, paragraph 1, and then politicians have had greater impact of changing the world in body paragraph 2. So I don't love that repetition of language. Could the candidate have a 7? Shaped society? Candidate does show some awareness of style and collocation, and there are less, to shape society. That's a good thing, to organize crowds. That's a good collocation. Equally valid opinion. Yeah, maybe I'm going to change my mind about lexical resource. I think there is enough in there. Of course, examiners always mark things positively. So we're always looking, we don't try to take marks away. We're always looking for examples of something. Like, does the candidate have these? Doesn't matter if they're always there, but we mark them positively. If they have those features, then despite some other weaknesses, we can award the 7. So I think there is enough awareness of style and collocation. There is flexible use of less common lexes. Cool. Of course, there are some informalities, some inappropriacies, but I think enough for the 7. Grammatical range and accuracy. Unfortunately, this one does have a ceiling. And for me, I'm going to give 5. And this might feel a little bit unfair because the candidate does use passive. The candidate does use some variety of structures. However, and some variety of sentences, sorry. However, for me, the poor use of commas, a couple of cases of poor use of commas, that's not the most important thing. Singular versus plural nouns. So many examples of mistakes with singular versus plural nouns. Advocates. Scientists. Scientists. So a few examples of those. And candidate also isn't sure on the difference between present perfect and past simple. And certainly I would expect somebody, I would expect the C1 to get that right. B2, I would expect them to get it right partially. Candidate has used some present perfect accurately, so that's okay. But there are some points where the language just falls down completely. But yeah, that comma there. Let's just see if I can find some more examples. Maybe, is there enough for a 6 in there? Which is transportation means, which is a means of transportation. Means is a plural noun, and also we have is. So yeah, that verb to be, we have to get that right. So I think, yeah, maybe it's fair enough to give grammatical range and accuracy 5, but possibly an examiner could give it 6 because there are some features of like B2 grammar there for sure. But okay, so that's my decision. So overall, the mark is 5.75, right? 5. That would be 5.5. Yeah, 5.75, which rounds down to 5.5, which is, B2, upper intermediate, lower end, the lowest end of upper intermediate. And I think that is a fair reflection of the candidate's writing, that they are the lower end of upper intermediate. The advice I would give to the candidate, first of all, is you have to learn what an argument is, because in this paragraph, in this body paragraph, there is no argument. And so you have to understand what it means to put an argument forward and what it means to support and develop an argument. And that supporting and developing the argument better in body paragraph 2, that would help you. sorry, in body paragraph 1 supporting, and in body paragraph 2 just making the argument here. So you really fall down there on task response. Also understanding what an introduction should look like, that will help you a lot. I think you could definitely get your task response up to a 7 just with a bit of exam technique, learning how to write an academic essay. You could get your task response up to a 7. Your vocab is very strong, great, cool, stay at it. Grammatical range and accuracy, try to fix those most basic mistakes. There are tons of mistakes with articles in there, but the key thing is that singular and plural, which is really, it's such an obvious mistake and it's such a basic mistake in English. Yeah, so that's my advice for this candidate. So yeah, B2, 5.5, lower end of B2, 5.5, a decent attempt, but certainly lots of room for improvement. So I hope you enjoyed that breakdown of this candidate's writing. If you would like, oh, and the third point, sorry, the third point to make for this candidate, your number of words. You're writing 400 words, it's too many. Shorten it, get it down to 280, 300. Anyway, let's try again. So I hope you enjoyed that breakdown of the candidate's writing. If you have any comments, of course, please do leave them below. Please do like the video and all of that good stuff. The channel is starting to grow and I'm close to 1,000 subscribers, so that's nice. If you'd like to have your own, if you'd like me to check your IELTS writing, or if you would like to have a free practice speaking test with feedback, then you can do this by applying on my Telegram channel. A link to the Telegram channel is given below. But for now, I will leave it there. See you all very soon. Bye-bye.